Let's face it, decluttering is not easy. It's hard to both get started, maintain momentum, but today I'm going to take everything into consideration and let's talk about several reasons why your decluttering efforts might be failing. You haven't started a spending freeze. When I started decluttering my house about 5 years ago, the first thing I did was put myself on a spending freeze. Aside from things like mortgage, food, gas, things that you obviously have to pay, I did not shop outside of that unless it was an absolute need. So this is one of the biggest hacks when you're decluttering your space, is realizing that if you just stop bringing inventory into your home, you're already making progress. So I highly recommend putting yourself on a spending freeze, whether or not you are in the beginning, middle, or you're just maintaining a decluttered home. Putting yourself on a spending freeze not only helps you save money, but it also helps you kind of maintain decluttering progress without really having to use your muscles and do all that heavy lifting. Burning yourself out by taking on too much at once is another surefire way to kind of lose momentum and maybe feel like you're failing in terms of decluttering. When I first began my own decluttering journey, something that I did that was such a regret later on is I took on too much at once. I went straight to the most cluttered areas in my home, and I think that is a temptation. When you think about decluttering, your mind goes straight to that area that is completely out of control, the area that's been bugging you the most, and it's the most obvious. But the hard thing about taking on large projects at once or in the beginning is that it really can burn you out quite quickly. So instead of trying to take on large decluttering projects right out of the gate, start really small. Start with 5 and 10 minutes a day. Start with a tiny drawer, a simple project. One that when you think about it, doesn't seem like it's gonna make a big difference, doesn't really feel like it's gonna be worth your time or effort, but I'm telling you, this is the way to go when you're easing yourself into it or back into it, not starting with the most obvious areas, which are usually the most cluttered. We often fall into the trap of thinking, my house is just not organized enough. If I can just buy some bins, baskets, everything is gonna look great and I'm gonna be able to maintain this space. It's not gonna get messy because everything's going to be organized. And I think essentially this is us realizing the need for everything to have a home. Everything in our space needs to have a home. And deep down in our gut, I think we know that. But the temptation is to buy a bunch of organization instead of decluttering first. So I'd say that's one of the big mistakes that I've made and I see other people make, is thinking that organization as a number one step is going to solve your problem. I love organizing, absolutely nothing against it. I think it's an incredible last step, but having a home for everything and decluttering your space is going to get you so much farther, especially in the beginning stages, than trying to organize everything. If you can't find a home, it's probably a sign that it needs to be decluttered anyway. Trying to declutter everyone else's stuff can be another trap. It's very, very tempting to want to go in and touch other people's things and get them out of the house as a way of, one, procrastinating getting rid of our own stuff, but two, just to try and motivate our family to get on board. Come on, guys, help me. I think more than anything, declutter your own stuff first. This is going to be inspiring. This is going to be motivating. Your family is going to see you spending less time cleaning, and they're going to see you feeling so much better in your space. It is very inspiring and motivating for the rest of the family. So don't get trapped into thinking that decluttering other people's things is a good way to start, because I think it will create some resentment and I don't think it'll be very motivating for the other members of your family in the long run. Not going into the decluttering process with a plan is another huge mistake. I highly recommend knowing when your best times to declutter are, and then making an appointment with yourself to follow through. And then having a plan as to what you're gonna do with everything. What charities are you donating to? Are you actually throwing a lot of stuff away? taking things to the dump. What is your plan? I feel like, again, we just get frustrated. We feel like we get the decluttering bug and we're just going to attack an area without really knowing what's going to happen next. I hear stories of people driving around with donations in the back of their car for months and years because they don't have a solid plan on actually what they're going to do with this stuff anyway. So going in with a plan, knowing when you're decluttering, how you're going to declutter, and then where is this stuff going to go is such a good way to begin and a good way to get motivated again if you're kind of just off the wagon. Attaching emotion to everything is really, I think, a natural thing to do. For one, we either spent money on it, and that's not just money, that's our hard work, that's our effort, that's our time. However, this is what kept me trapped for many years, is attaching emotion or too much emotion to my items and possessions and not being more practical in my approach. Decluttering does not have to be a gut-wrenching emotional journey, rather just a practical path that's a means to an end. So try to detach as much emotion as possible when you're decluttering your stuff by asking yourself really practical questions like, when is the last time I used this? Is it serving me? Things like that can be very helpful. And then not letting the item bully you into you keeping it, making you feel bad for the money or time lost or the fact that it was a gift. Just let it go. Give yourself permission to declutter every single day or every single week, guilt-free, where you say, I'm not gonna let my stuff bully me. I'm actually going to be in charge of all of this stuff, and I'm gonna tell it where it's going and that it's actually not allowed to be in my house and bully me any longer. Not knowing why you're decluttering can be another huge hang up when it comes to actually making progress in your home. When I first began my decluttering process or project, my whole house was a project, I really had to get serious about why I was doing this. Not only is it a big undertaking, it fills up a lot of space in your life by way of, again, making those exhausting decisions. Takes muscles, it does take time and energy, and so you've got to have a really good reason to do it. I don't feel like any of us really undertake decluttering just for fun. I feel like it's because we're fed up, we're frustrated, we're tired of not being able to find anything, we're tired of our things getting broken. So I think we all have a reason, or like we're exhausted by the amount of cleaning we have to do every single day in our home. So we all have good reasons, but I think that we really need to bring those to the surface and identify very clearly what they are. Why are we doing this? Beyond just, I don't want to spend all this extra time cleaning. If I can save myself an hour every day, that's an hour I can be with my kids. That's an hour I can be at the gym, working on my hobbies, visiting friends. There are so many beautiful things that can take the place of all these things that our clutter kind of steals from us, our energy, our time. So defining those whys, the reasons we're actually going to do this, can help continue the motivation as it does get difficult and burnout maybe does start to creep in and we're tempted to just give up. Knowing why we're doing this in the long haul and what outcome we really are hoping for is so beneficial. Ooh, here's a hard one. Keeping too many just in case items. This is a temptation for me, as I'm sure it is for so many of you. This is one of the reasons I also kept so many things. Not only had I attached emotional value to everything, but I also saw its practical value. I think I can use this someday. I think I can and I think I will. And so holding on to the items for a future someday scenario is a really tempting thing. And I think it's kind of in our blood to do that. Coming from hunter, gatherer, we want to survive, we want to have plenty. We don't want to find ourselves suffering or strained. So I think the temptation there is to come up with a just in case scenario that justifies keeping the item. Time for a harsh reality check. Generally, those just in case days never, ever, or rarely come. When you start getting worried about getting rid of something that you might need someday, I like going back to the 20-20 rule. Could I get this or order it in 20 minutes or less for $20 or less, or could I borrow it from a neighbor or friend? I have been able to find almost everything I've ever needed either on Facebook Marketplace, at the thrift store, from a neighbor, or on Amazon. And to be honest, I think I've probably replaced less than 5 items in 5 years and spent less than $100. So it's not what you think it's going to be. You're not going to be in scarcity like you think you are. Everything's available at our fingertips, and you can generally get things either for free or really cheap. It is worth it to declutter the item just in case you're gonna need it someday, because it will be there again to replace it, but the benefits are guaranteed. Here's kind of a little mental shift. Focusing too much on what you have to get rid of rather than what you get to keep. So often, and I've been guilty of this too, I go in thinking, oh, I've just got to get rid of stuff. And all of a sudden, it puts us kind of on the defense. And we think, well, this is my stuff. I paid money for it. I invested my time into it. It was a gift, on. And suddenly we're trying to defend the item. So focusing more on going into a space and looking at it with a totally different lens and just saying, what am I gonna get to keep from this space? What do I want to keep? Not only what brings me joy, but what has been useful? What continues to serve me day after day, week after week, and year after year that I get to keep? So starting with your favorites first, starting with the no-brainers first is such a great way to approach this, rather than what do I have to get rid of, which is just gonna put us, like I said, on the defense. Trying to clean and organize alongside decluttering can be a very, very big distraction. I think we get kind of the end goal in mind of a certain project and we think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get this space decluttered. It's gonna be super clean and really organized. And that is so exciting. And that's all true. We will get there, especially if we're consistent and we persist. But the thing is, trying to clean and organize and declutter all at once is suddenly that heavy burden. Now we're overdoing it again. Now we're taking on too much. We're biting off way more than we can chew, especially right in the beginning. So try to just focus on decluttering when it's time to declutter. You can clean later. You can organize later. Getting really, really zeroed in on decluttering and not letting anything else distract you can be so helpful. Not having a plan on how you're going to actually maintain your decluttering progress is another mistake that I think can kind of keep us held back, stuck in clutter. And one thing that I mentioned at the beginning that I think is again, good to mention is putting yourself on a spending freeze. You can also plan to do a 21 item toss at the end of every month. You can do a 10-10-10 challenge, maybe every week, where you spend 10 minutes relocating 10 items in your home and decluttering 10 items in your home. You can follow the 1 in, 1 out rule. Anytime you bring something new into your space, you're going to let something else go. So making sure that you're aware of these kinds of challenges, these kinds of progress helps, I think is very, very beneficial when you're trying to maintain your progress, because honestly, there's nothing more discouraging than making all that progress just for it to pile up again. Another mistake is not telling anybody about it. Just like weight loss, I feel like telling a friend that you are embarking on a journey can be incredibly motivating, and somebody that you can send before and after progress pictures to. Something that is one of my favorite things about decluttering is that it really is immediate. The progress is visible the same day, if not within the same 10 minutes. And so I think letting somebody know that you're doing this can be such a cool way to keep yourself accountable, keep yourself motivated. Take the before and after pictures for yourself, of course, but take them also to send to someone. Going along with that, not having rewards in place for your accomplishments, for your wins, I think is another mistake that we kind of forget about. You deserve to be rewarded. And I don't mean by buying new stuff, by going out and buying it from the store and bringing more into your home. I mean reading a new book, taking a walk in the forest, journaling, getting together with a friend, something that's really gonna motivate you, that's very grounding, and something that doesn't involve shopping. Unless it's been something you've needed to replace for a while, and you say, okay, the throw pillows I've needed to replace for the last year. Once I get the pantry decluttered, know what, I'm actually gonna replace those pillows. It has to be very mindful, it has to be very purposeful and intentional. Forgetting to utilize tiny pockets of time throughout the day is another mistake I think that keeps us stuck or holds us back. Remembering once again that it doesn't have to be an entire weekend project. You don't need 3 hours at once to make incredible progress. So just utilizing tiny little pockets of time throughout the day and then pairing them with tasks. You know what, when I unload the dishwasher in the morning, I'm gonna spend 5 minutes decluttering one of the cabinets or drawers in my kitchen. After I'm done putting on my makeup in my bathroom, I'm gonna spend 3 minutes going through a drawer or a little organizer caddy underneath the sink. Anything like this matters. It adds up fast. You'd be amazed at what you can do in just a few minutes of time throughout the day, throughout the week. Add this up in months and you've probably decluttered hundreds of items. So don't underestimate the power of a few minutes. And then pairing them with other tasks that you're already doing anyway. Neglecting storage spaces is another reason your decluttering efforts may be failing. It is so overwhelming to get into your basement, attic, garage. These areas are generally packed with memorabilia, special mementos, keepsakes, heirlooms, you name it, stuff from our kids' childhoods, little bikes that we're having a hard time letting go of. Trust me, I sobbed when I got rid of my daughter's little radio flyer trike last year. It was so hard, but not neglecting these spaces is very important. Likely there is a lot that you can actually get rid of in your storage spaces because they are just that. They're for storing items that you are not currently using. So don't neglect these spaces. In fact, it might be kind of cool to start here if you feel like you have the stamina for it, but these can be awesome places to get into because we're not using this stuff anyway. And I was able to get rid of like 4 or 5 boxes of home decor right out of the gate when I started my process. In the first year, that's one of the things that I did. And I couldn't believe what I hauled out of the basement just because it was easier since it's stuff that I wasn't using, I wasn't seeing every day. It's like, I'm not gonna miss this at all. And truth be told, I didn't. Don't forget to declutter large pieces of furniture. Often, these are flat surfaces that kind of tempt us to hold clutter, to let pile up, and then things with drawers like armoires and dressers, things that just tempt us again to fill up the drawers and the spaces. If you are able to declutter an entire dresser or a wardrobe or an end table, consider maybe getting rid of it altogether. Spending too much time trying to sell everything can be such a hang up, and it's difficult because I feel like often we look around and we see all this money that we've spent, or maybe even if the item was a gift, you know it's worth something. Oh, my friend, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna make any money at all, or you're not gonna make nearly enough as you think you are, and it's not worth it. The money's been spent, let it go, let the items go. So much better to continue on making this incredible progress than stalling, trying to sell things that are not gonna make you that much money in the end. So trying to sell everything is another big hang up, stalling your efforts and making you fail. So try and limit yourself and say, I'll only sell things that I know I can get at least $50 or $100 for, and then have the 2-week rule. I'm only gonna have this up on Marketplace for 2 weeks. If it doesn't sell, I'm cutting my losses and I'm donating it. Setting your expectations really high or putting too much pressure on yourself can be another thing that will hold you back, keep you stuck, or keep you from even starting. Really think about what phase of life you're in and what clear or reasonable expectations can be set. And then don't beat yourself up or feel badly if you're not able to meet those expectations exactly. Life being full of surprises, I think we need to be really gentle on ourselves and let ourselves just celebrate those wins that we have and realize that things are never going to go exactly according to plan. You don't have to have your entire house decluttered before your in-laws come and stay. And do you know what I'm saying? Or before you host a party next weekend. Lower your expectations, have expectations, but keep them reasonable so that you can stay motivated and not feel defeated and beat yourself up when those things that you were hoping for don't end up happening. Using an experience where you regretted getting rid of something or decluttering something as kind of an excuse for you to hold on to stuff, saying, you know what, I regretted when I got rid of that gray hoodie last year. That means I can't trust myself. I don't make good decisions. I'm just going to keep regretting if I continue on this path of decluttering. Let me tell you right now, every single time I went through and decluttered a zone or a space, I would have moments of regretting something that I had decluttered. The honest truth of the matter is, however, that rarely do you continue to regret getting rid of that item. I remember regretting getting rid of a couple onesies 5 years ago when my daughter was a baby. Do I still today regret getting rid of those onesies? Absolutely not. So even a regret can be very, very temporary. So don't let yourself believe or fall into the trap of thinking you're not good at making decisions. You will make mistakes. I promise you're going to regret getting rid of something. So be empowered by that. Go in knowing for a fact this is going to be difficult. You're going to have a couple of regrets, but I promise you're not going to get rid of your absolute favorite things. I promise you're not. You're not going to let yourself do that. It might be a fleeting regret, or it might be a little bit more lifelong, but honestly, life goes on, and generally, we really don't need the item in the end, even if we do feel a little badly that we got rid of it. Don't wait for something to change before you begin. This is probably one of my best pieces of advice, and one of the number one things keeping us stuck. Waiting for the kids to be older, waiting for the renovation to get done, waiting until we move into a bigger space. We can always come up with an excuse and a reason not to start right now. So don't wait. There's no time like the present, truly, when it comes to decluttering. You can start seeing incredible improvements in your home, in your routine, the kind of time that you get back in your life just from 5 minutes today. So don't wait for any reason. Get going right now, and that progress that you'll see will be incredible and instant motivation. And I bet you'll start wishing, like I did, that you got started even sooner. Well, I'm so grateful that you let me be part of your decluttering journey. Hopefully some of these tips were helpful. Thanks for being here. Bye.